Hey everybody, welcome to the second lecture on the cranial nerves. Last time we met, we had been talking about the oculomotor nerves, which are cranial nerve number 3. And we were looking at some of the muscles that those oculomotor fibers are going to go to. We know they're coming out of the anterior midbrain here, going through the sphenoid bone and going to a lot of muscles. The only muscle we did not do was this muscle called the ciliary muscle, which is going to adjust the shape of your lens in order for you to switch between distance vision and close-up vision. Okay, so we can see our oculomotor nerves hanging out right there. There they are. And now we can go on to cranial nerve number 4. Cranial nerve number 4 is the trochlear nerve. It's the trochlear nerve. And it is kind of weird in that it is the only cranial nerve that comes off the back side of the brain. So it comes off the dorsal part of the midbrain, wraps around, and then goes through the sphenoid bone. And it goes to just one muscle, one extraocular muscle. The oculomotor went to a bunch. Remember we said the oculomotor went to all the eye muscles except for 2 of them. And this is one of the exceptions here. The trochlear nerve goes to the superior oblique muscle, which is the muscle that's going to basically let you look kind of down and out with your eyeball. If you look down and out, you're using your superior oblique. All right. On that note, we are done with him. We see him right there sneaking around the brainstem. And we are on to nerve number 5, the trigeminal nerve. It's going to come off the side of the pons. It is a big nerve because it quickly splits into 3 branches. So before we even leave the cranium, it splits into 3 branches, and they all go through separate holes in their cranium. And basically, there's one that goes to the eye, one that goes to the cheek, and one that goes to the jaw. So if you think about it like that, eye, cheek, jaw, and therefore there's an ophthalmic division, there's a maxillary division, and a mandibular division. So eye, cheek, and jaw. And all of these guys branch quite a bit, and they are bringing sensory information to your brain. So the trigeminal nerve is very much about facial sensation. Okay, facial sensation. Now, that is not all it does. It does some more. It also is going to synapse with chewing muscles. So it has a motor job as well. And we can see those chewing muscles here. I see my temporalis muscle, one of the ones you got to know for lab. My masseter muscle. So these are both jaw clenching, mandible elevating muscles. Then there's also some muscles called your pterygoids, which help you kind of like grind your teeth back and forth. So my trigeminal nerve goes to all these chewing muscles. And by the way, in the left-hand picture here, we can see that the mandibular division brings you sensation from that part. There's the maxillary part, and there is the ophthalmic part. All right, so that is the big trigeminal nerve, nerve number 5, and we see him right here. He's already started branching in this picture. That's why it looks like there are more than one. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Let's do number 6. Number 6 is the abducens nerve. Coming off the bottom of the pons there. So coming off right there at the bottom of the pons. Slipping up through the sphenoid bone. And it is going to just one eye muscle. And that eye muscle is the lateral rectus. So it's a muscle that lets you look out. Remember, the oculomotor went to almost every eye muscle with two exceptions. We did one exception when we did the trochlear nerve, and now we're doing the next exception as we do the abducens nerve. All right, if your abducens nerve isn't always telling your lateral rectus muscle to contract at least a little bit, this is what happens to your eye. It'll drift medially. Okay, all right. So that is a motor nerve, no sensory function for it. If we look here, we see it hanging out right there by its lonesome self. So that is nerve number 6. We still have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Wow. All right, let's do another one. Let's do number 7, in fact. Number 7 is the facial nerve. It is a mixed nerve, so it's going to have sensory and motor functions. The sensory function is pretty straightforward, okay? The sensory function is it's going to get taste signals from the anterior 2/3 of your tongue. The anterior 2/3 of your tongue. Now, the motor function is a little bit more complex because it is going to go to basically all your facial muscles. So if you think about the facial muscle lab you might have done already, think about muscles like your orbicularis oculi, your zygomaticus major, your orbicularis oris, pretty much all the facial muscles with the exception of chewing muscles. Okay? So that's the somatic part, the somatic motor part, but there's also an autonomic motor part because this guy is going to go to a bunch of glands. He is going to go to a pair of salivary glands. There's a salivary gland under the tongue called the sublingual and a salivary gland under the mandible called the submandibular. So your facial nerve goes to these. Plus, it is going to go to glands, mucus glands, actually in your nose. So mucus glands in here in the nose. Plus, it's going to go to your lacrimal gland, which is going to make you lacrimate. In other words, it's going to make you make tears. Now, this guy, the facial nerve, comes out of basically the top of the medulla. And we see it zipping through to get to the face. All right. That's good stuff. That was number 7. Here we see some of the facial muscles it's going to. I mean, it's going to have a temporal branch. We see it going up here to the occipitofrontalis. We see it going to the orbicularis oculi. We see it going to the nasalis. We see it going to the zygomaticus major, to the risorius, to the platysma. All sorts of places. Now bear in mind, if this facial nerve stops working, one side of the face can basically start to droop. And we see that right here. It's called Bell's palsy. Sometimes it happens for no good reason. Sometimes it happens as a result of a viral infection. Generally goes back to normal eventually. All right, now the facial nerve is officially done. Let's just say goodbye to it. We see it hanging out right there. All right, one more to do. Last one, the vestibulocochlear nerves, number 8, leaving basically from the top of the medulla, rather, right next to the facial nerve. In fact, coming up, going through the acoustic meatus to get into the inner ear. It is going to go to two things in the inner ear. It is going to go to your balance and equilibrium structures. So things that we see here like this vestibule and these semicircular canals. This lets your brain know about the position and the acceleration of your head, which is, of course, how your brain, one of the ways your brain knows you're moving. It also goes to a structure called the cochlea. The cochlea is where you have your auditory receptors. So this guy is involved in both balance and in hearing. And we see him again hanging out right here. All right, that's it for this one. See you next time.